My father pointed at the exit and told me to take the old dog with me. Then a retired lieutenant general dropped to one knee and whispered, "K219?" Rex's head came up before the rest of his body moved. His nails pressed against the tile. The worn metal tag on his harness tapped the edge of the uneven table, once hard enough to make the water glasses tremble. My father mistook that small sound for disobedience. "Leah," he said, still pointing toward the doors, "this area is for officers. Take your dog outside." I shortened the leash by 2 inches and put my left boot beside Rex's shoulder. He was breathing through an open mouth, slow and heavy, but his eyes had fixed on the man kneeling 6 feet away. The general did not reach for him. He kept one hand low and waited, the way people waited when they understood that a working dog belonged to a handler before he belonged to anyone's memory. Around us, chairs stopped scraping, a fork touched a plate and stayed there. Even the old loudspeaker seemed to lose its hum. The general looked from the scar near Rex's shoulder to the faded code on the harness. "Is this Rex?" My father gave a short laugh. "You know this dog?" The general rose carefully, but his eyes never left Rex. "Colonel," he said, "I know why some of the men in this room are still alive. But before I tell you why a retired lieutenant general knew Rex's number, subscribe and stay with me." The full version of that night had been buried for 8 years, and the person who buried it was standing in the room. 3 days earlier, I had almost left Rex at home. Rex had missed the first command I gave him. He stood in the shade beside the chain-link fence while I worked a young Labrador through a collapsed building search pattern. Rex watched without moving. "Easy," I told the Labrador's handler. "The air knows before you do." Behind me, Rex shifted his weight. His right rear leg trembled once, then settled. I called his name. He did not look up. I called again, louder. One ear turned toward me. The rest of him followed a second later. I finished the session early. Rex rose when I touched the old harness hanging from the fence. His front feet found position first. His back end came up slowly, stiff through the hips, but when I stepped forward, he moved to my left side without being told. My phone vibrated inside my jacket. The email came from the reunion coordinator for the unit we had supported in Afghanistan. "Anniversary gathering, memorial video, confirm attendance." I would have deleted it if one sentence near the bottom had not stopped my thumb. Retired military working dogs were welcome with prior registration. Rex sat beside me, breathing through an open mouth. Gray had spread around his muzzle, making him look gentle to people who had never seen him work. I registered him before I could decide not to. That evening, I opened the metal storage box at the foot of my bed. The metal plate with K219 was scratched enough that I could feel each number with my thumb. Under it was the orange reward ball. One side was blackened and slightly flattened from heat. Rex heard the latch and came down the hall, but when I said his name, he kept walking until the scent reached him. His nose touched my wrist. Not yet. He settled at my left foot. I slipped the ball into my coat pocket. When I stood, pain tightened behind my right kneecap. The reunion was 2 hours away, at a veterans hall outside Colorado Springs, not far from Fort Carson, where our route security unit had trained before Afghanistan. Rex was 11 years old. He had begun sleeping through thunderstorms. I told myself I wanted one quiet evening. What I wanted was for someone who had known him before the gray muzzle to say his name while he was still alive to hear it. My father called the next morning. "I heard you registered the dog." "Rex," I said. A pause followed. My father used silence the way some men used a gavel. "This is a unit reunion, Leah, not one of your civilian demonstrations." "I know. Aaron is being recognized during the memorial program." He has agreed to say a few words. That meant my father had spent weeks writing words Aaron would pretend were his own. I looked through the window. Rex was asleep beneath the maple tree. "The coordinator approved him," I said. "Approval is not the same as judgment." "No, it usually requires more paperwork." His voice cooled. "The main tables are arranged for officers, spouses, and senior guests." I do not want confusion. There was no confusion. There was only the possibility that someone might look at Aaron, then at me, and ask why our father spoke about one uniform with pride and the other as if it had been borrowed. "I am bringing Rex. Do not turn this into a statement." Bringing Rex was not a statement. Leaving him home would have been one. Instead, I said, "We will stay out of the way." It was the kind of promise I had been making my family for most of my adult life. On Saturday evening, I parked at the far end of the Veterans Hall lot. I clipped the leash to Rex's harness, then checked the wind out of habit. kitchen exhaust from the rear, 2 public exits, 1 side door. A narrow service lane along the east wall, then I checked him. Breathing steady, gums pink, no tremor in the front legs. The right rear leg was stiff but usable. I held the orange ball beneath his nose. His eyes sharpened. Focus. He fixed on me. I returned the ball to my pocket without releasing it. Rex stepped down, paused while his joints arranged themselves beneath him, then moved against my left leg. The old harness looked too severe for his gray face. I considered replacing it with the plain walking vest in the trunk. My hand was on the latch when Rex leaned his shoulder lightly against my knee. I left the old harness on. At the entrance, his breath fogged the bottom edge of the glass door. Inside, someone tested the microphone. The speaker cracked, then whined. Rex's head turned before mine did. I reached for the handle with my burned hand. Then I opened the door. Warm air and too many voices met us. Rex entered with his shoulder level to my knee. 10 feet inside, a white board listed the seating assignments in thick black marker. Retired general officers, retired field grade officers, company grade officers and spouses, senior guests. Enlisted personnel and support staff. My name was under support staff. Not Sergeant First Class Leah Mercer, not former military working dog handler. Just Mercer Leah, written beneath 2 civilian contractors. My father had always preferred categories that looked objective. He attended Aaron's commissioning in a new suit. He missed my certification as a dog handler because, as he put it, he had already seen me graduate from basic training. You were not becoming an officer, he told me later. You were learning kennel work. The woman behind the registration table looked up. Her name tag read Dana Pike. Leah Mercer? Yes. She checked the clipboard. Rex, military working dog, retired. Pre-approved. Water station is through the side hall. Quiet room is unlocked if he needs it. She slid a green ribbon across the table for his harness. Behind her, a woman at the audiovisual booth leaned over a laptop while a distorted trumpet note came through the speakers. Family Cut lost the left audio channel again, she said. Dana did not turn. Use the archive version. I may have to. The migration corrupted something. The woman clicked through files marked with dates and suffixes I could not read. I signed beside Rex's name. My father appeared before I lifted the pen. He wore the dark blazer he used for military funerals. A colonel's eagle was pinned inside the lapel, and a challenge coin rested in his palm. His eyes went to the green ribbon, so Dana approved this. Dana looked up. I approved a retired military working dog for a reunion that allows retired military working dogs. My father smiled as if disagreement were a misunderstanding. Of course, I only meant the seating may require adjustment. It was already adjusted, I said. His gaze moved to the board. The front tables are crowded. We have senior guests, former commanders, spouses, and officers. His thumb pressed against the challenge coin. This is not the evening to debate rank. I was not debating it. Debates require the possibility that someone will listen. He lowered his voice. Aaron's tribute begins after dinner. 8 minutes. The unit put a great deal of work into it. The unit had not. My father had spent 14 months polishing a version of our family in which courage moved through the male line. Aaron had been good at many things before he learned how useful that version could be. He entered the army through ROTC. I enlisted the year after his commissioning. At first, the difference between us had not felt like a distance. When I transferred into military working dogs, he mailed me gloves and wrote, "Better you than me." Those dogs can smell fear. He met Rex before our first deployment. Rex was young then, all ears and restless calculation. Aaron stood in my yard tossing the orange reward ball from hand to hand while Rex stared at it. "What happens if I give him the command?" Aaron asked. "He waits for me." Aaron smiled. "That must bother Dad." It sounded like a joke because I still believed my brother knew the difference between pleasing our father and becoming him. We were not assigned to the same unit in Afghanistan. My dog team had been attached to Aaron's convoy for one route security mission after the road produced 2 fines in a week. Heat returned to me in pieces, a metal door, Rex driving his weight backward against the leash. The smell of electrical insulation burning, my left glove blackening at the palm. A watch face cracked beneath orange flame, someone inside the vehicle making a sound too low to be called a scream. I never remembered the explosion as noise. I remembered pressure against my chest, followed by a silence so complete I could hear Rex breathing. Then the memory broke. My father touched my elbow. "Try not to make tonight difficult." Rex shifted closer to my left leg. I brought a dog to an event that permits dogs. You know that is not what I mean. Yes, I knew. He meant I should not answer questions too fully. I should not let my scars, my rank, or Rex's presence complicate the cleaner story waiting on the projector. I had accepted that arrangement once before. 3 months after the ambush, my family gathered in my father's living room to watch a video Aaron said the unit had cleared. The convoy moved through dust, the image shook, there was an explosion. Then the video cut. In the next shot, Aaron stood beside a damaged vehicle, blood at his temple while he directed men toward a casualty collection point. When the clip ended, my father turned to him. You brought them home. Then he looked at me, and you are lucky your brother was there. The sequence was wrong. Rex's alert was gone. The second device was gone. The burning vehicle was gone. I looked at Aaron. He looked back before I asked anything. His eyes held mine for one beat, then they moved to our father. I could have spoken. Instead, I watched pride settle across my father's face and exhaustion bend Aaron's shoulders. My mouth stayed closed. I'm tired, I said, then I left. 8 years later, the same version of the story was waiting inside the veterans' hall. My father stepped aside and gestured toward the main room. Your table is in the back. I took Rex's leash in my burned hand. Then we walked in. The room was warmer than the lobby and louder than it needed to be. Rex noticed the floor before I noticed the people. A long table near the front had one leg shorter than the others. Each time someone crossed the center aisle, the glasses on it trembled. Rex lifted his head half a second before the water moved, then settled when the vibration passed. I chose the outside edge of the nearest open table so no one would trap him between chair legs. A card marked Mercer had already been placed there. Not Leah Mercer, just Mercer. My father had found a way to make a name tag sound like a demotion. Leah. Aaron came through the aisle carrying 2 glasses of water. He still moved like an officer entering a room he expected to manage. His left shoulder stayed slightly lower than the right, a habit from rehabilitation. The field watch on his wrist caught the fluorescent light. A white fracture crossed the face from 10 to 4. He handed me 1 glass. You made it, Rex did. Aaron looked down. For a moment his jaw loosened, his eyes moved over the gray muzzle, the scar by Rex's shoulder, and the old harness. Hey, partner. He bent and reached toward Rex's head. Rex shifted backward until his flank touched my shin. Aaron stopped with his hand in the air. He used to like me. He used to hear better. That was true, but not the whole truth. Rex had never confused familiarity with permission. Aaron straightened. His eyes dropped to the bulge in my coat pocket. You still carry that ball sometimes. He rubbed his thumb across the cracked watch face. Did you watch the tribute? I asked. His hand stopped. Dad showed me a version. Which version? Aaron looked toward the audiovisual booth. The woman from registration was still moving through files while the projector displayed a unit crest. It is the same one Dad has always liked, not the same one the unit had made. The same one Dad liked. Before I could answer, my father arrived with Dana Pike beside him. Dana held the seating chart. Thomas says there is a concern about the dog being near the main aisle. There is no concern, I said. I placed him at the edge. Dana glanced down at Rex. He was under the table, chest upright, leash loose. He is exactly where his registration says he can be. My father gave the patient smile he used when regulations failed to support his opinion. No one is questioning registration. I am speaking about placement. We have former commanders at the front tables. Some spouses are uncomfortable around military dogs. A woman seated 2 chairs away looked up. I am not. My father ignored her. Dana tapped the chart. This table is part of the unit section. The officer's table is full, my father said. Dana looked at the card in front of me. This is not the officer's table. My father's mouth tightened. He turned to me. There is a table near the rear doors with more room. Was this seat assigned by unit or by rank? The nearest conversations thinned. My father rolled the challenge coin between his fingers. This evening has a proper order. That was not my question. Aaron looked at the floor. There are silences that come from uncertainty. His did not. His silence had direction. It moved away from me and toward our father. Dana drew a breath as if she might intervene, but I lifted the water glass and stood. Rex rose with me. His rear legs took an extra second. Aaron saw it. You can stay, he said quietly. My father heard him. At the rear table, yes, Aaron could have corrected him. He could have said I had served with the unit. He could have said Rex had worked the route, where men in that room had earned the injuries they still carried. Instead, he touched his watch again. Maybe it is easier, he said. Easier. That word had carried more weight in our family than truth. I picked up my name card. Dana leaned toward me. You do not have to move. I know, but Rex was old. The rear table had space. I had not brought him there to make him stand through a family argument. That was the reason I gave myself. The rear table sat beside a display of deployment photographs and retired equipment. A cracked helmet, a radio handset, 3 faded route maps. As we crossed the aisle, the uneven front table rocked again. Rex looked toward it before the glasses shook. A man wearing a former first sergeant pin watched him pass. That dog still reads a room faster than most lieutenants, he said. My father heard that too. He waited until I reached the rear table before taking the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, please begin finding your assigned seats. We will start dinner by rank group and then move into the memorial program. By rank group, a few people looked at the seating board. Others looked at me. My father continued. We are fortunate tonight to have officers who carried this unit through some of its hardest days. Rex folded himself beneath my chair. Across the room, Aaron remained standing beside the front table. He met my eyes once, then my father called the officers forward. The officers moved toward the front in a slow, practiced current. Retired majors and colonels rose first, spouses gathered purses and programs. Chairs scraped the tile while my father stood beside the microphone, guiding people with one hand and holding his challenge coin in the other. No one ordered me to remain seated. That was the useful thing about rank. Arranged carefully enough, it could make exclusion look like procedure. A former first lieutenant stopped beside my table and glanced at Rex. Veterinarian, handler. Before I could say more, my father answered from 10 feet away. Leah worked with the dogs, feeding, transport, holding the leash. Support work. Rex's ear turned at the word leash. The rest of him stayed still. I was a military working dog handler, I said. My father rolled the coin across his knuckles. Yes. That is what I said. It was not. The lieutenant looked at the old harness, then at the scar beneath my fingers. What unit? My father touched her elbow and redirected her toward the front. Dinner is starting. Aaron watched from beside his chair. He had heard every word. His jaw tightened once, then released. That was his second chance. He let it pass. Servers brought out chicken, green beans, and rolls. Rex ignored the food. Years around open trash, diesel blood, and soldiers dropping half their meals had taught him that hunger was not permission. A man across from me pointed with his fork. Good discipline. He used to have better knees, I said. So did I. He laughed, but my father heard only the first sentence. Leah always was better with dogs than people. A few guests smiled because they thought it was a harmless family joke. She never wanted command, my father continued. Never had the temperament for officers' work. The challenge coin touched the table with a metal click. Rex's head came up. My hand moved to his harness. The man across from me noticed. Still working? Retired. I meant you. I train civilian search dogs now. My father gave a quiet laugh. She finally found a version without deployments. The words were mild. Around the table, eyes moved from Aaron's uniform to the leash in my burned hand. My father watched them make the comparison. I reached for my water and caught the orange ball inside my pocket. It dropped to the floor, rolled beneath the table, and stopped near my father's shoe. Rex saw it. His shoulders shifted forward, but he did not move. No release command. My father picked it up between 2 fingers. The burned side faced Aaron, his eyes fixed on it. For 1 second, the room left his face, then he looked away. My father turned the ball slowly. You brought a dog toy to a veteran's dinner? It is his reward object. It is melted rubber. Rex's eyes stayed on my hand, not the ball. My father held it out. Does he perform tricks for the officers? The man across from me stopped eating. I took the ball with my left hand. The scar tissue pulled white across my palm. No. My father's smile faded. He waited for me to lower my eyes or raise my voice. I did neither. I returned the ball to my pocket. Rex lowered his head, but Aaron kept staring at my hand. He remembered the ball. He remembered where it had burned. Still, he said nothing. Halfway through dinner, Rex began panting harder. The hall was warm, and every vibration from the uneven table opened his eyes. I guided him toward the side door. The hallway smelled of floor cleaner and rain trapped in concrete. I filled a paper bowl halfway. Rex drank, lifted his head, then waited. Again, I added more. A broad man with silver at his temple stopped nearby. His name tag read Ortiz. Have we met? Probably somewhere loud. He smiled, but his eyes stayed on my left hand. I folded it around the leash. His expression changed. Not recognition, not yet Afghanistan, he asked. Before I answered, the microphone cracked through the wall. Would Captain Aaron Mercer please join me at the front? Rex stopped drinking. Through the doorway, Aaron rose as people applauded. My father waited beside the projector screen. Ortiz looked into the room, then back at me. Mercer, he said quietly, as if the name had opened an old drawer. I picked up the bowl. We should go back. The program had begun when I returned to the rear table. Behind my father, the projector showed Aaron in body armor, his cracked watch visible beneath one glove. For those who did not serve with him, my father said, Captain Mercer was the officer who held that convoy together during one of the unit's worst attacks. He described the explosion, the damaged vehicles, and the wounded men Aaron organized after the first blast. Those things were true. Then he reached the part he had polished for 8 years. When his own sister became trapped in the chaos, Aaron brought her back and made certain she came home. A pulse started beneath the scar in my palm. Rex pressed his shoulder against my shin. My father looked directly at me. Leah never commanded anyone that day. She was there to hold a dog while the men around her fought. No one laughed. The room had changed enough for him to notice, but not enough for him to understand. Aaron was the one who had to bring her home. Aaron stood 3 feet from the microphone. He heard it. I watched his throat move. This was not a cut video in our father's living room. He had time, witnesses, and the truth. Aaron looked at me. Then he lowered his eyes. The pulse beneath the scar in my palm slowed. For years, whenever my father praised Aaron's version, I had folded my burned hand out of sight and let the room move on. I had called that silence a shield, but a shield held over someone long enough can become a roof. They begin to live beneath it. My father pointed at Rex as if my silence had already answered for me. He glanced toward Rex, now standing beside my chair. This dog does not belong near the officers' section. Dana Pike started forward. My father lifted his hand before she reached us. Then he pointed at the exit. Rex shifted beside me. The worn metal plate on his harness struck the edge of the uneven table with a hard, flat click. A man near the front stopped moving. He had been standing beside the wall beneath a framed unit flag, speaking to 2 retired officers. I knew his face before I remembered his name. Lieutenant General Marcus Shaw, retired. He had commanded the brigade during our first deployment. He crossed the aisle slowly, Rex's nails pressed against the tile. His head came up before his hips followed. The room did not go silent all at once. It thinned in sections. One conversation stopped, then another. A chair leg scraped and did not move again. General Shaw lowered himself to one knee 6 feet from Rex. He did not reach out. K219, Rex's right eye turned toward him. His eyes stayed on me. My father gave a short, uncertain laugh. General, I think you have the wrong dog. Shaw looked at the scar near Rex's shoulder, then at the faded numbers on the harness. No, he said, I do not. He lifted his eyes to me. Handler's name? Leah Mercer. Something changed in his face. Not recognition exactly, but the moment before it. My father stepped closer. She was attached in a support capacity. Shaw did not look at him. May I approach? I loosened the leash by an inch. Slowly, he moved one hand forward, palm down. Rex leaned enough to take his scent, then returned to my leg. Shaw rose. That dog was on the Nari Siraj route package. A man at the front table turned fully in his chair. Another lowered his program. My father rolled the challenge coin in his palm. There were many dogs on that rotation, not with that number. Shaw's voice stayed level. A working dog does not receive a unit citation by accident, Colonel. My father's thumb stopped on the edge of the coin. He did not receive a citation. He is a dog. The team is named in the supporting narrative. The word team landed differently than dog. The former first sergeant who had joked about Rex reading the room set down his fork. He did not stand yet. He leaned forward and studied the harness as if comparing it to a photograph he had carried for years. At the rear wall, 2 men exchanged the same quick look soldiers use when a name reaches them before a memory does. My father noticed those looks. He moved between Shaw and the nearest table, trying to restore the shape of the evening. This is Aaron's recognition, he said. Whatever support Leah provided can be discussed afterward. Shaw finally looked at him. Recognition is not a ration, Colonel. Giving the correct person her share does not take yours away. Behind me, someone said Mercer. Ortiz had come in from the side hall. He was staring at my left hand. I tightened it around the leash, but the movement exposed the scar across my palm. He came closer. Turn your hand over. My father looked offended on my behalf, which was almost funny. She does not need to be examined in the middle of dinner. Ortiz ignored him. Leah, it was the first time anyone in that room had said my name like they were finding it rather than reading it. I opened my hand. Ortiz looked at the white pull of scar tissue near the base of my thumb. I cut a glove off that hand. The room tightened around us. My father frowned. She was injured in the attack. Aaron brought her back. Ortiz looked at him. That burn did not come from holding a leash. It came from reaching through a burning door. Across the aisle, a woman stood so quickly her chair rocked backward. Major Elise Warren, former. I knew I recognized the voice, she said. She looked at me. You were the handler who stopped the lead vehicle. My father turned toward her. Aaron was convoy commander. He was in the second truck. Aaron's head lifted. Elise kept her eyes on me. You called the halt after the dog alerted. My father's voice sharpened. There was an initial blast. Everyone was reacting. No, Elise said. The initial blast had already happened. Aaron moved away from the microphone. Not far, just enough to no longer look as though he belonged beside it. At the audio-visual booth, Nora Bell leaned toward Dana. Dana nodded once. The projector image changed from Aaron's portrait to the unit crest. Ladies and gentlemen, Dana said into the second microphone, we are continuing with the memorial footage. Aaron looked at the screen, then at the booth. Nora. She did not hear him over the speaker hum. The first image appeared. Dust, a road cut between low walls. The camera shook with the movement of a vehicle. I knew the footage before the date code appeared. My hand tightened on the leash. Rex felt it and shifted closer. On screen, his younger body moved ahead of mine, hard muscle under a black harness. His ears were high, his gait was quick, then he stopped. Not hesitated, stopped. His body went ridged, cutting left, then lower. I saw my younger hand close around the leash. A radio voice ordered the convoy forward. The camera turned toward the lead truck. My voice came through the hall speakers. Hold the line. Another voice answered sharper. We are sitting in a kill zone. Rex pulled backward once. I heard myself say second device. Nobody moves. My father stared at the screen. Aaron did not. He watched me. The explosion came 3 seconds later. The camera jolted down. People in the hall flinched at the sound, even though it was 8 years old. On screen, the place where the lead vehicle would have been disappeared into dust and broken road. Emily Cross covered her mouth. My husband was in that truck, she said. No one answered. The footage continued. Men moved through smoke. Orders overlapped. Rex appeared again at the edge of the frame, circling back to me. Then the camera swung toward a burning vehicle. The cracked watch on Aaron's wrist flashed beneath the window. My father's challenge coin slipped from his fingers and hit the table. Rex's head snapped toward the sound. On screen, I reached through the damaged door. My left glove darkened. Someone shouted for me to get back. The camera caught the blade in my right hand. I cut through the half-melted strap of Aaron's watch, where it had caught against twisted metal. Then I pulled him free. The image shook as another man grabbed his vest. Aaron fell against the road. I went back to Rex, not because I was brave. Because the convoy was still inside the danger area, and he was the only one who could tell us where not to step. The footage showed him holding at my left side while I directed men around the contaminated ground. He alerted again near the rear wheel of a damaged truck. The screen went black. For several seconds, the only sound was the projector fan. My father looked at Aaron. You said she was behind your vehicle. Aaron opened his mouth. Nothing came out. General Shaw stepped beside the front table. The after-action material named Sergeant Mercer and military working dog K219 in the route to security narrative. His gaze moved across the room. The second device alert stopped the convoy. Sergeant Mercer returned to the disabled vehicle after she had already been injured. Captain Mercer then organized the casualty collection point and rear security. He looked at Aaron. Both truths remained standing. Aaron had fought. I had pulled him out. One did not erase the other. Shaw faced Rex, then he came to attention. Elise stood first. Ortiz followed. A man near the rear wall rose with one hand braced on the table. Then another. Emily stood for her husband, who was not there. The movement spread without command. No one cheered. They stood because they remembered where the road had ended for them, and where it had not. Rex pressed his shoulder into my leg. His breathing was heavy now. I rested my burned hand on the harness. My father remained seated. The challenge coin lay near his water glass. He looked from the standing veterans to the blank screen. Then he looked at me. Why did we never see that? Aaron answered before I could, because Leah did not want it shown. The room changed again, not in volume, in direction. Every face that had turned toward me moved toward him. Aaron stepped away from the microphone stand. She never wanted recognition, he said. She made that clear. I watched his hand move to the cracked watch. 8 years earlier, that same look had held in our father's living room. This time, Aaron's hand moved to the cracked watch before Nora even left the booth. I let go of the leash with my right hand and reached down to steady Rex with the left. You never asked me, I said. At the audiovisual booth, Nora Bell closed the laptop. Then she picked up a thin archive index and started walking toward us. Nora carried the archive index against her chest as she crossed the room. She did not hurry. Aaron's eyes stayed on the index against her chest. He stepped toward her. Nora, this is not necessary. She stopped beside the projector screen. Captain Mercer, you just said your sister requested that the footage be removed. Aaron looked around at the people still standing. I said she did not want recognition. That is not the same statement. My father rose slowly from his chair. What footage was removed? Nora opened the index. The pages were white, typed with file names, dates, and short production notes. The archive keeps the master, Nora said. A family request only creates another version. She pointed to one line. The file shown tonight was the cleared unit master. The version previously provided to the Mercer family was labeled Family Cut. My father looked at Aaron. Who requested it? Aaron rubbed his thumb against the cracked face of his watch. The unit handled those things. Nora shook her head. 8 years, 14 months of tribute planning, 2 versions of the same road. One request waiting in Nora's hand. The request came from you. The uneven table shifted as someone leaned against it. Water trembled in the glasses, but Rex did not lift his head this time. His weight had settled heavily against my leg, Nora continued. The request was made 3 months after the attack. You asked us to remove 37 seconds beginning with the second device alert and ending after Sergeant Mercer pulled you from the vehicle. My father stared at the black projector screen. Why? Aaron looked at me. I had seen that expression once before in our father's living room. Aaron had watched me leave without asking me to stay. Now his eyes moved from Nora's index to my face, measuring the same silence. Nora turned one page. I asked whether Sergeant Mercer had approved the change. You wrote that she did not want her name or image included. My father's voice dropped. Leah, did you say that? No, Aaron stepped closer to me. You did not want people talking about it. You never asked. You hated the interviews. You would not even attend the unit ceremony. I was in rehabilitation. You said medals did not change what happened. They do not, he seized on the answer. Exactly. No, Aaron, my voice stayed quiet, but he stopped moving. I said a medal would not give me my hand back. I did not say you could remove me from the road. His face tightened. I did not remove you. Nora closed the index. You removed 37 seconds. Aaron's mouth opened, but no answer came quickly enough. My father gripped the back of his chair. You let me tell that story for 8 years. Aaron turned toward him. You wanted that story. My father's eyes dropped to the challenge coin, but his hand stayed on the chair. My father released the chair as if it had become hot. Aaron looked from him to me. I was not trying to steal what you did. What were you trying to do? He glanced at the veterans surrounding us. Some had sat down. Others remained standing, coats still hanging from chair backs, their eyes fixed on Aaron. Aaron lowered his voice. After the attack, Dad finally looked at me like I had become the officer he expected. My father's face changed, but Aaron continued before he could speak. Everyone kept saying I held the convoy together. They said I got the wounded out. That part was true. Yes, I said it was. He blinked. His mouth opened, then closed, and the hand holding the cracked watch lowered an inch. You organized the casualty collection point after I pulled you out, I continued. You established rear security. You called the evacuation while you were bleeding. Aaron swallowed. I did my job. You did it well. My father looked between us, unable to understand why I was giving Aaron anything. Aaron's eyes lifted to mine. He did not look toward our father. I left the praise where it was and waited. Aaron's fingers tightened around the cracked watch. His voice weakened. When I saw the full video, all I could think about was Dad watching you cut me out of that vehicle. You mean cut you out of the watch? His hand dropped from the cracked glass. I knew what he would see. What, that you saved me? The words were barely audible. A chair creaked somewhere behind him. Aaron looked at our father. I had spent my whole life being the son who was supposed to protect her. My father's lips parted. I never said you did not have to. Aaron's shoulders dropped. When he spoke again, the command voice was gone. I thought if the family saw the shorter version, it would be one difficult night avoided. Leah did not care about praise. Dad would be proud. The unit still had the real report. He looked at me. I thought nothing important would change, only the person everyone believed. He closed his eyes. I was ashamed. During the attack? After, I looked at the cracked watch in his palm. The fire had broken the glass. Aaron had made the request 3 months later, with steady hands and enough time to sign his own name. My father sank back into his chair, so all these years, he could not finish. He looked at me as if I had become unfamiliar. Why didn't you tell me? The old answer rose automatically. Because you would not have listened, because Aaron needed you. Because I did not want to beg, I let it pass. I should have corrected you, I said. But my silence did not make Aaron's story true. My father lowered his eyes to the challenge coin beside his glass. 14 months of planning, 14 minutes of unraveling. 8 years of a story polished until the missing 37 seconds no longer looked missing. My father stared at the coin in his palm, then at the daughter he had seated behind 2 civilian contractors. He picked up the coin. For a moment, I thought he would close his fist around it. Instead, he put it inside his jacket. Rex shifted his front paws. My father looked down at him. He took 1 step forward. Rex leaned into my leg. My father stopped. The movement was small, but everyone nearest us saw it. May I? He asked. It was the first question he had asked me about Rex all evening. I rested my hand against the worn harness. Not tonight. My father nodded once. People had started moving toward the exits. Dana lowered the microphone. Nora returned the archive index to the booth. Aaron remained beside the blank screen. My father followed me as I guided Rex toward the doors. Leah, I stopped near the entrance but did not turn fully around. He looked at the unit flag, the standing veterans, and Aaron alone near the stage. We should take a family photograph before everyone leaves. I looked at him. With Rex, he added, all of us together. He spread one hand toward the stage, already arranging where we would stand. The challenge coin was hidden inside his jacket, but the edit was the same. My father's request hung between us, a family photograph. For 8 years he had accepted a version of the road that placed Aaron at the center and left Rex and me at the edge. Now he held his hands apart as if a photograph could pull us into the same frame. No, I said, his face tightened. Leah, everyone is emotional. A photograph would show that we are still a family. It would show that we stood together tonight. We did. You stood when the room stood. He looked past me toward the veterans gathering their coats. I was wrong, yes, the word landed between us. I did not add anything to soften it. He took a breath. I can tell people the truth. You may tell people what Rex did. I kept one hand on the harness. You do not get to tell them you always believed me. My father looked at Rex, then at the floor. For once, he did not argue with the boundary as if it were a regulation written badly. Aaron reached us near the doors. He had removed the cracked watch. It sat in his palm, the broken face catching the fluorescent light. I should have told him, he said. You should have asked me. I know. Rex shifted his weight, ready to move. Aaron stepped aside so we could pass, then followed us into the parking lot. Rain had stopped. Water shone beneath the security lights. Rex's nails clicked more slowly on the pavement than they had 8 years earlier, but he found my left side without looking. At the car, Aaron stopped 10 feet behind us. Leah. I opened the rear door. He looked at Rex, then he gave the old command. The word correct, the tone was close. Aaron had heard me use it enough times to remember. Rex's right ear turned. He did not leave my side. Aaron swallowed. I thought he remembered me. He does. That was all I gave him. Memory was not obedience. Familiarity was not trust. And loyalty was not a door someone could open with the right word after years of standing on the other side. I reached into my coat and took out the orange ball. The burned side was rough beneath my thumb. I let it fall. Rex watched it strike the wet pavement. He waited. Take it, he moved. Not toward Aaron. He picked up the ball, turned, and came back to me. Then he placed it carefully into my left hand, the hand with the scar Aaron had watched appear on the screen. His teeth released only when my fingers closed around it. Aaron looked down at the watch in his palm. I was brave that day, he said. And still did. Yes. He nodded once. There was nothing left for me to explain. Nora Bell came through the doors carrying a coat over one arm. Sergeant Mercer, I turned. The unit archive will keep the master, she said. But future memorial programs need authorization from the people identified in the footage. Do you want your section restricted? For years, I had treated disappearing as proof that I did not need anyone's approval. Rex leaned against my knee. No, I said, keep the full version. Nora waited. Keep his name with mine, Team K219. Do not turn it into a Mercer family tribute, you have my word. My father remained beneath the entrance light. He did not ask for another photograph. I helped Rex into the back seat. He circled once, lowered himself onto the blanket, and placed his muzzle beside my burned hand. As I pulled out of the lot, the veterans' hall grew smaller in the mirror. The truth stayed behind in the archive. Rex still came home with me. That was the full version. Being remembered was never the same as being loved. If this story stayed with you, share it with someone who believes every life deserves its full version.